I thought I'd cover something that's in the interest of our entire audience, our target demographic, of course, being the ghettos, and that is P. Diddy. Now possibly going to be changing his official title to Puff Diddler, allegedly. Make sure to make that very, very clear right now. It's all alleged thus far.
Okay.
So let's not get into any libel action here. But what isn't alleged...
He's going to find it very difficult to sue us from prison, isn't he?
Well, he's been denied bail, so yes, probably. I did cover some of what was going on earlier on this year, but there have been some developments, so I thought I'd go over some of what happened and give everybody an update. But what isn't alleged is that we have a fantastic magazine out, Islander #2, that Josh just can't help waggling around there. Ooh, it works in 3D as well. Yeah, it's full of excellent articles and is available on the website for a limited time only. If you order it, you'll be able to... Thanks. Did somebody hop you up on too many sweets this morning? What's going on?
Dizzy on sugar.
I knew it. Yes, if you order it right now, then we'll be ordering to print, and you should receive it within about 2 to 3 weeks. It's got excellent articles from the likes of Carl Benjamin, Nima Parvini, some new contributors, including Dave Green, the distributist, and Stefan Molyneux, among others. You should read it. You should treasure it. You should cuddle it up at night because you're ever so lonely otherwise. You should buy it. There you go. So, moving on. P. Diddy, earlier on this year and at the end of last year, was subject to a rolling number of lawsuits that all came one after the other, that were all alleging very, very serious and similar charges, one after the other, where a number of his ex-girlfriends and even one ex-producer of his all alleged that he was a serial sexual abuser who was in an Epstein-like manner hosting parties where some of his ex-girlfriends, some of his colleagues that he would work with would be forced to have sex with prostitutes, many of these prostitutes underage, at his home and other locations, often rigged up with cameras, secret cameras in many of these rooms. This was alleged by his old producer, Lil Rodney, who worked with him up until, I think, midway through last year, all in the aim of presumably blackmailing people, keeping people within the music industry, particularly the hip-hop sector, under his thumb. And these were called freakouts.
So one thing that I'll find very interesting about this, with this trial going forward, is the fact that supposedly Jeffrey Epstein did the same thing, and we heard nothing of the video evidence of the people committing crimes. No one's been prosecuted, of course, for any of these things. In fact, it's all been rather hush-hush.
Of course, and there've been a lot of allegations in the music industry in general for a very, very long time that you have particular ways of getting into the industry, getting a career, being promoted by producers, which I think... as difficult as it can be to make a living in the music industry these days, given how little money there is in it, is at least one thing that the more democratized online music sharing prevents people from being exposed to, which is being exposed to people who are potentially going to sexually exploit you for promises of a career, which you may not even get a career out of it. You could suck anybody off, and you never know if you're actually going to. That's what happens,
but
allegedly.
One thing that I would find interesting is if these alleged crimes are, of course, true, whether these videos that have been allegedly recorded of the alleged perpetrators, I'm going to be saying allegedly a lot here, whether those are going to be released in this case as opposed to the Epstein one, because I see lots of parallels between the two, but I get the impression that Epstein was much more plugged in with far more elite people than perhaps P. Diddy was. He was more in the sort of arts and entertainment. And generally speaking, they're not the ones that run things, are they?
They're not the ones that necessarily run the country, but they do run a lot of LA and Hollywood and the media business industry in general. So this will expand out to Hollywood as well. Think Harvey Weinstein, except... potentially more serious than Weinstein, because what was alleged against him was that he used his position of power to coerce women into performing sexual acts on him, whereas what's being alleged against P. Diddy is essentially an enormous prostitution ring and human trafficking, which is what the federal judgments are coming out against him.
So the curious thing for me then is really two questions. The first is there a list of associates and alleged associates, I should say. Take a shot every time you hear the word allegedly. But alleged associates and people connected, they've got to be pushers in this market. There's going to be people like Ghislaine Maxwell was with Epstein, who are sourcing, presume if it's allegedly children, underage girls, then it's going to be, they're sourcing these kids basically to be abused. And similarly, you're going to have points of contact for aspiring artists, shall we say, who want to get in there, who would then get pointed in P. Diddy's direction, at which point he gets dirt on them by inviting them to the party, and then he's got leverage. So I'm really curious whether or not we would get eyes on that in the event of that. And the second question really is, why is this coming out now? What has happened with P. Diddy? If he's got powerful friends who've been shielding him for a long time, allegedly, then why is this the moment at which the story has broken?
To answer your first question, there are other names involved in it. I couldn't remember them off of the top of my head, but some of the other names involved are other Black Hollywood stars who've appeared in television shows and films as well. I can't remember, sadly, off the top of my head. The second question would be that P. Diddy has been the center of rumors for a very, very long time, and one of his ex-girlfriends, this Cassandra Ventura, was one of the ones who put one of these lawsuits against him at the end of last year as well, which seems to have caused this domino effect of all these different lawsuits coming against him. And so I think with all of the evidence that's built up against him, it might just be time for the Hollywood and media elite to throw out a sacrificial lamb, which they do every so often.
Fairly high-profile lamb, so to speak.
Yes, but of course, as you say, we don't know how deep this goes, and we don't know if he was high up in the hierarchy or if he was just a fall guy middleman who, through his talents within the industry, was able to still make a hell of a lot of money from it. Because, of course, if you're in that position, there is a lot of money to be made from it, sadly. So, as I mentioned, one of the things that came out was this lawsuit from his ex-girlfriend, Cassandra Ventura, who was one of the first people to say that he was hosting these freakouts. She said in a lawsuit that he had forced her to do some terrible sexual acts with prostitutes. I think they settled that out of court. She also said that he physically abused her, and we can say almost for certain that that isn't alleged anymore because earlier on this year, CNN actually released footage of it because it was caught on CCTV.
Obtained exclusively by CNN.
Pretty brutal. So there's her, Cassandra, and here is P. Diddy, drunk, high, who knows what, in a towel, going to run up to her and proceeds to just assault her.
Oh my god.
That's horrible.
Not very nice. And there's footage later on as well of him going back into the hotel corridor and it's pretty brutal. And it lines up almost exactly with what was alleged, as it shows here, in the indictment that was brought against him. Mr. Combs became extremely intoxicated and punched Miss Ventura in the face, giving her a black eye. And you can see that that's what happened. Later on as well, he picks up some vases from the hotel corridor and just starts throwing them at her. So it's not very nice. We don't really need to dwell on that, but it seems that, he's an abuser. That much is clear. But some of the more bizarre lawsuits that have come out since all of this happened include this one, which is go away, post-millennial, I don't care, which he's actually being ordered to pay $100 million in a Michigan sexual assault lawsuit because he failed to attend the hearing. This was put forward by a man called Derek Lee Cardello Smith, who, it's worth noting, is currently a prisoner in Michigan for he's a convicted felon and sexual predator who had been sentenced on 14 counts of sexual assault and kidnapping over the last 26 years. So nobody in this story is coming out well.
No.
But he's being paid $100 million whilst he is in prison because the lawsuit alleged that he met Combs at a Detroit restaurant in 1997 and they were getting drunk and smoking pot. Cardello Smith says that while Combs was having his way with a woman at the party, he put one hand on his rear end. He also claims that Combs then gave him a drugged drink that made him fall unconscious. That's something that's often alleged at these freak-out parties as well, that all the drinks are drugged, and you would often drink something and then wake up the next day, no clue what happened, and of course, Lil Rodney alleges that the entire house was filled with cameras, so who knows what was caught on camera being done to you. When he regained consciousness, Cordello Smith says he saw Combs engaged in sex with another woman, and the rapper informed him, "I did this to you too."
Oh, God.
That's not very nice, is it?
No.
But really, did we expect any better from the rap music industry? And the music industry as a whole. The people who occupy these positions of power, especially in the sorts of music industry that actively goes out of its way to promote degenerate gangster behaviour, of course they're going to be scumbags. Of course they're going to be scumbags, and when they become high up scumbags, prominent and rich scumbags, they're going to help even richer scumbags do scummy things. Are we really shocked? Sad to say, this is how the media entertainment industry in America has worked for a long, long time. And in the UK as well, we had our own Jimmy Savile, after all. Let's not forget that. There was the footage that came out of his mansion, one of his many mansions, I think he had 2 or 3, being raided earlier on this year. One thing that was interesting from this was that supposedly the feds found 1,000 bottles of lotion and lube, which 50 Cent has been making fun of him over. Wow. When 50 Cent can hold the moral high ground over you.
Yeah, 50 Cent is on a redemption arc here. He's endorsed Trump. He's
I was going to say
mocking P. Diddy.
Among all of them, to be fair, I don't actually know if 50 Cent has done anything wrong in his life. He might have done, he might not have done, I don't know. So he certainly seems to be taking the moral high ground over P. Diddy. But of course, he has been arrested by the feds as well now. He's been arrested in New York, and he has been denied bail. The criminal charges against him are that he's been charged with sex trafficking and transportation to engage in prostitution after a federal grand jury in New York chose to bring an indictment against him. He's accused of running a criminal enterprise that consisted of his associates, employees, and the influence of his business empire to coerce, control, and abuse female victims. This includes sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice, according to the indictment. Now, of course, within the rap industry, there are a lot of other claims against him, including him potentially having murdered people at clubs, or at the very least shot and assaulted people at clubs, and potentially having been involved in the murder of Tupac Shakur. There is a rumour for a long time that he was the one who ordered it in the first place, as some kind of West Coast, East Coast beef that was going on between...
Well, everyone's been implicated in that at some point, haven't they?
Yeah, I probably have. And I wasn't even born when it happened. So carrying on, the indictment was unsealed on Tuesday morning, and federal prosecutors alleged that he and his associates threatened, abused, and coerced women and others around him to fulfill his sexual desires. The indictment also includes forcing victims to engage in recorded sexual activity, which he referred to as the freak-offs. So it's all included in this indictment. So all of these different lawsuits, which all seem to be pointing in the same direction, are now also being pursued by the feds.
I wish I had more to say on this. I'm just getting a picture of someone who's allegedly very psychologically deranged and has been enabled by power and money in order to do things which are unconscionable, really. And so I hope that he feels the full force of the law as he goes to trial, and that the right verdict is found.
Of course, if he does turn out to be innocent, then I hope he gets either way, I hope he gets a fair trial, but I would not be shocked. Combs was arrested at a Manhattan hotel, and his lawyer, Mark Agnifilio, called his client an innocent man with nothing to hide. He said, "We are disappointed."
1,000 bottles of baby lotion.
I'm just getting 1,000 bottles of baby lotion and that image of him beating a woman in a hotel. Just running.
Those would be things to hide, I would say.
Yep. "We are disappointed with the decision to pursue what we believe is an unjust prosecution of Mr. Combs by the U.S. Attorney's Office." He also said that, he's a loving and caring family man, but no one is perfect. Which, no one is perfect is doing a lot of heavy lifting there, I think.
I was going to say.
Have you ever accidentally purchased 1,000 bottles of lube, Josh?
Your hand slips when you're on Amazon. It can happen.
You buy
It's
1,000
possible.
bottles of lube, then you accidentally beat your girlfriend, drag her down a corridor. And,
How do you know what I did last weekend?
you know?
That was actually footage of Josh. He'd blacked up for the occasion, just to throw people off the scent.
Allegedly.
No one would guess.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly.
Oh, God, we shouldn't be laughing. Also, I'm not going to play the audio of this because it's pretty horrible, but one of Diddy's former bodyguards has released what he claims to be audio of P. Diddy at one of these parties, and then says that he recorded it specifically because he heard what was happening and thought, I'm going to make some money out of this. So doing it for only the most pure of reasons. We've got the court sketches. I think this is being a little bit flattering to him because we also have a photograph of him after the arrest.
Did Picasso do the eyebrows? What's going on there?
Well, it doesn't seem entirely accurate to me because here's his arrest photo, and I'm glad to see that Jakob is back, boys. Finally, he returns. And I mentioned that he's also been rumoured for a long time to have, called the hit on Tupac. Well, the feds are now collaborating with one another and secretly liaising with a Tupac Shakur murder prosecutor to exchange information which may turn up something on that.
Is it really that secret if it's been reported in The Sun?
Yeah, that's always a good question when you hear these things.
That's just a very bad report on the Sun's readership these days.
Yeah.
He can keep a secret.
So for some reason, the murder of Tupac Shakur has been something that people have been questioning for years. Who did it? Who really did it? I mean, he was a gangster, so, gang activity does that. But imagine if, as well as Diddy potentially going down for his alleged criminal activities, it then turns out that the rumours that he got Tupac killed as well, turn out to be true. So, yeah, we'll see how it develops, but that's a little update for everybody. I'm sorry that you all had to sit through that, because it's pretty horrible reading.
Hi folks, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed that segment, and if you did, you can go and get issue 2 of Islander magazine from shop.lotus.com. It's available all across the world and of course contains the cutting edge of right-wing thought and the most relevant aesthetics you'll see anywhere. While you're at it, come and follow us over on X, at _Lotuseaters_com, and I'll see you next time.